A park ranger on a routine hike literally vanishes into thin air. A man is found murdered in a volcanic paradise with nitrogen monoxide suspect inside. A teenage girl on a group trip disappears while walking just a few yards off trail. These aren't campfire tales. This is real life. Today, we're exploring three of the craziest national park mysteries that have left investigators with zero answers. These stories are insane, and they're the ones that remind us just how vast and wild the wilderness can be. These cases are defined not by what we know, but by what we don't know. For the families and the investigators, these parks are haunted by questions that have gone unanswered for years.
Section E. The disappearance of Ranger Paul Foggett. Our first mystery is absolutely wild and takes us to the otherworldly landscape of Kilauea National Monument in Arizona. This place is nicknamed a wonderland of rocks because it literally looks like an alien planet. This was the workplace of 4-year-old park ranger Paul Foggett. This guy loved the outdoors. He was a trained botanist who found his calling in nature. But he was also known as a bit of a rebel who sometimes clashed with his bosses. On January 13, 1980, Paul was the only staff member on duty. Around 9 p.m., he told a seasoned employee he was going on a super short hike. He left his radio and keys behind, which proves he planned to be back in minutes. His instructions were simple: if he wasn't back by 4:30, just close up without him. Paul Foggett walked out of that visitor center, wearing his full National Park Service uniform. He was never seen again. When Paul didn't return, one of the biggest searches in the region's history kicked off. Search teams, dogs, and Dylan helicopters scoured all 1,200 acres of insane terrain. They searched through every canyon and creek bed and found literally nothing. Not a single footprint. Not a dropped piece of gear. Not one shred of his uniform. It was like a man who knew this park like the back of his hand had been erased from existence. From day one, investigators suspected foul play. The complete lack of evidence was terrifying. How could an experienced ranger just vanish on a routine patrol in his own park? Kilauea is relatively small. Its main road is a dead end, and its trail system isn't that big. It seemed impossible for someone like Paul to just get lost. So what happened? Theory number 1: he stumbled upon something he wasn't supposed to see. Back in the bushes, this remote area, just 40 miles from the Mexican border, was a known corridor for drug smuggling. The theory is that smugglers, shocked by a uniformed ranger, abducted and killed him. Did his own band make him a target? Other theories were thrown around. Some wondered if Paul, who had a history of arguing with his superiors, just walked away from his life. But those who knew him best said no way. He was passionate about his work. The idea that he did fake his own disappearance just didn't add up. For 6 years, the National Park Service refused to declare him legally dead, leaving his wife in a horrible limbo. Then, in a crazy twist in 2018, the Park Service announced new information had emerged, and they tripled the reward for information to a whopping $60,000. They have never revealed what this new information was. The mystery of Paul Foggett is still the most famous case of a U.S. park ranger who went missing on duty and was never found. He walked into a wonderland of rocks and vanished, leaving only silence. Section R. The murder of Almond B. Johnson. Next up, we're going from the desert to a literal volcano on the Big Island of Hawaii. Here, in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, a place of creation and destruction, a brutal crime shattered the island's peace. This is the story of Almond B. Johnson, a man whose life was amazing, and whose death remains a dark mystery. Almond Johnson, 44, was a well-known and beloved guy in his community. He was a massage therapist, a volunteer athletic trainer, and he helped kids with autism. But most people knew him as the host of a popular weekend reggae radio show. Friends said he was a harmless, trusting man who could make a friend out of anyone. On April 13, 2005, this amazing life came to a violent end. Someone made a horrifying discovery near the park's southern boundary, about 100 yards off the highway. Lying in the volcanic scrub was the body of Armand Johnson. He was dressed in a tank top, swim shorts, and slippers, definitely not the right clothes for a hike in the rugged national park. An autopsy revealed the shocking truth that Armand had been killed by a single gunshot to the upper back and neck. The one led investigators to a chilling conclusion that this was an execution-style murder. The FBI believes he was killed right where his body was found, and the killer didn't even try to hide the body. The investigation was impossible from the start, with a total lack of evidence and leads. Who would want to kill Armand Johnson? By all accounts, he was a man with zero known enemies. The motive was a complete mystery. Some friends admitted that Armand used drugs recreationally and wondered if that played a role. But even they felt it didn't explain such a cold-blooded killing. One of the most puzzling parts of the case was that his car, described as an old, beat-up car, was gone. Its absence became a huge, frustrating part of the puzzle. Did the killer take it? Was it a carjacking gone wrong? To this day, investigators have never publicly stated if it was ever recovered. The location itself just added to the confusion. The spot where Armand was found wasn't deep in the wilderness. It was just off a main highway. Was he lured there? Did he meet someone he knew? He was last seen 2 days earlier, leaving work and telling a co-worker he was heading home, a trip he never completed. Years later, the FBI and the National Park Service announced a $1 million reward for information, but no one has come forward. The silencer on Armand Johnson's death is insane. This was a deliberate act of violence in a place most people associate with peace, and officials have nothing but speculation. All that's left is a question that has haunted the Big Island for nearly 2 decades: and who killed Armand Johnson? And why? Section 3. The disappearance of Stacey Ayres. For our final mystery, we travel to Yosemite National Park in California, a land of giant sequoias and towering granite cliffs. It was here, in the summer of 1981, that a 14-year-old girl vanished in one of the most baffling disappearances in the park's history. On July 17, 1981, Stacey Ayres and her father were on a horseback trip through the park. After a long day, they arrived at the Sunrise High Sierra Camp, a group of cabins sitting at a crazy high elevation of 9,400 feet. A little while later, Stacey decided she wanted to walk to a nearby lake to take some pictures. An elderly man from their group offered to go with her, but the hike and the altitude wore him out, and he sat on a rock to rest. Stacey told him she'd just be a few minutes and continued on. A guide working nearby happened to see her standing on a granite rock, looking out towards the lake. He watched her for a moment before a small group of trees blocked his view. That was the last time anyone ever saw Stacey Ayres. When she didn't return after 20 minutes, the man she was with raised the alarm. A search began immediately. For the next 10 days, one of the biggest search and rescue operations in Yosemite's history went down. Hundreds of people on foot and on horseback, with helicopters, scoured the 5-square-mile area around the camp. They searched every trail, creek, and boulder field, and they found almost nothing. The only trace of Stacey Ayres ever discovered was the lens kept from her camera. There was no body, no camera, no clothing, no sign of a struggle. It's unbelievable. So what could have happened? Investigators considered an animal attack, but they found no blood or torn clothing, and attacks in Yosemite are super rare. Could she have simply gotten lost? That seems unlikely. The search was massive and started almost right away in a small area. Plus, other hikers were coming up the trail from the direction she was headed and never even saw her. Some reports mentioned she was having minor troubles at school, leading to a theory that she ran away. But that idea makes zero sense. Why would you try to run away from a remote camp, high in the mountains, miles from any real road? She was seen by the guide, alone, and then she was just gone. It's a case that has frustrated investigators for over 40 years. A 14-year-old girl, surrounded by her tour group in one of the most popular national parks in the country, stepped behind some trees and was gone forever.
Conclusion: a dedicated ranger who evaporates in the desert sun. A beloved community member executed in a tropical paradise. A teenage girl who vanishes from a busy camp in the high mountains. These stories are more than just unsolved case files. They are modern wilderness legends, rooted in terrifying reality. They represent the chilling intersection of the beauty of our national parks and the dark, unpredictable nature of what can happen in the wild. These are the cases that stick with investigators. The ones where the trail didn't just go cold and was never there to begin with. The lack of evidence, witnesses, or clear motives leaves them in a state of permanent suspension. These mysteries remind us that for all our maps and trails, these vast landscapes hold secrets they may never give out. They force us to confront an unsettling idea, that sometimes there are no easy answers. There is only the lingering question that hangs in the quiet forest air. What really happened out there?
If you found these stories as compelling and haunting as me do, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more explorations into the unknown. The more we discuss these cases, the greater the chance that someone, somewhere, might remember a small detail that could finally bring answers.